Can you imagine? Can you imagine if anybody associated with the Biden administration, like,
was fighting on Christmas?
yes.
Wouldn't you want to be with one of the dozen kids you ordered through IVF instead?
Elon Musk, the only time his kid appears is when he's a human shield at some public event because he doesn't want to get United Healthcare CEO'd. So now, but otherwise, I'm not sure how much time he spends with his kids.
So these H-1B, did I say H-1B1? I would imagine I did.
You're thinking of a virus.
Yes, exactly. These H-1B visas are visas that are essentially done, as Emma said, through employers for high-paid, skilled workers to come overseas and do jobs like, it could really be any job, but most recently are associated with people coming over to do like tech jobs. And apparently the Republicans who voted for Donald Trump, one of the features of a Donald Trump administration was supposed to be no more immigrants. Mm-hmm. No more immigrants. And the guys working on Doge, the tech bros, Elon Musk, one of our top oligarchic leaders now, who we must pay all homage to, and Vivek Ramaswamy, who they were talking about why these H-1B visas must remain untouched in this assault on immigration. And Vivek, do we have his original tweet?
You mean short?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. His tweetette. This is, it goes, just scroll down to what the date was. I just want to confirm this.
Oh my God, dude.
Oh, no, this is the day after Christmas. Okay. So it's Boxing Day.
Boxing Day, okay.
And the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over, quote, Native Americans. Now, this is funny. He's saying, I don't know what he's saying here, because I do think this is worth parsing out. Native Americans, we know, without the quotation, we know, are indigenous people to this land. Now, I guess there was a time where there was no humans on the planet, but within our, sort of understanding of of history, the indigenous in the sense that they were here for thousand upon thousand years.
And then, we colonized this land and we killed many of them.
We performed a genocide and we took the land. So that's what we generally mean with native. Now, he's putting native in quotes, I guess, to describe American citizens who are born here. And what's interesting is because he's also being suspicious of that term, because he's also implying that immigrants can also become Americans.
He doesn't want to say white Americans here, I think.
Anyways, it's a very strange use of that of the quotes there. But Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit.
Okay.
A lazy and wrong explanation. Okay, so in other words, he is acknowledging that sometimes culture and is
context
formed by other things around you. Right? Like he's saying, it's not innate in Americans, but there's something going on with Americans who don't have the ability to be, engineers. And he says a key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Okay, so there's a culture of an American IQ, well, not IQ deficit, but an American deficit of some sort. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth.
Oh, we got it. That was he had that truth hat. That was his brand. So he's still branding
it's all branding
himself
exercise.
Here.
Fantastic. Were you also ready the Ann Coulter, Vivek Ramaswamy clip from back when he was running? Because I just want to tune into that. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. Now listen, this has actually been a critique that I have seen for even longer than that. There is a wonderful moment in the Emmys by Mike Nichols and Elaine May, two comedians. Mike Nichols, they both went on to be directors, but they used to do a comedy duo together. And maybe you can find it online, a video of them at the Emmys coming up and accepting an award for their mediocre work, saying that this is an industry that really doesn't care too much about excellence and really just looks at each other. And this culture of mediocrity, I think, and again, these are the most successful people in the business, right? If they're at the Emmys. There is, and maybe this is what he's talking about, a culture in corporate America that basically says, if we're all doing okay, let's just nod and say it's going good. And a lot of times, it's almost like everybody was in the same club for many years and years and years. And they were all letting people in.
But I thought you were going to go with the fact that these first two kind of paragraphs sound like what a lot of right-wingers used to say about black people in this country, that there's a cultural problem with their poverty. And I would say it sounds actually ideologically entirely consistent with J.D. Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy, which basically uses tropes about poor black people and applies them to poor white people in Appalachia. And so Vivek is saying the same thing. By the way, they're from the same state, Ohio.
Well, what this is the two Charles Murray books. So when he says like the IQ thing is stupid and lazy, that's actually the first Charles Murray book, The Bell Curve, which is, he wrote about black people saying actually they're genetically inferior. That's why they have all these poor outcomes. He wasn't able to say that about white people, so he had to come up with a second book called Losing Ground, which is basically, like you said, the J.D. Vance argument that these people have a cultural deficiency that encourages sort of lack of productivity. Mm-hmm. And I mean, really, that's all J.D. Vance was, and that's what this is.
So when he says native, that's why he can't say what you're saying.
Now, a culture that celebrates the prom queen. I love the fact that he's saying this has been since the 90s. Since the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all started in the 90s.
Oh, my God.
They celebrated the prom queen over the math Olympiad or champ, or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Now,
oh, come on, Vivek. Do not go down this road, buddy. Like, Americans, conservatives love their prom queens and their jocks. That's who they want to be.
I love being a guy born in 1985 that says this probably started in the 90s.
Half of like conservative nostalgia is wishing that they were back in that place where they were like second string safety on their football team and had all their hair.
Now, I mean, this is pretty funny because I will tell you that there has never been a time in America where the prom queen and the jock were less celebrated over the valedictorian or the Olympiad champ than today.
Yeah.
We're at the peak of that so far. Like, it was worse back in the day.
I've seen John Hughes movies.
No, of course.
Why is he starting it in the 90s?
Right. But I mean, it's just absurd. And then he says, a culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. And let me just say this, a culture that uses television crappy sitcoms from your childhood as examples for these things also probably won't produce the best engineers.
The problem with our culture is that we don't worship Steve Urkel enough. I think he said it so well.
But now he says, fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity and their kids went on to be wildly successful STEM graduates. Now, let me just say this. If you are a scientist, like an engineer, let's say, and someone was to present you with a theory based upon the multiple families you knew of immigrants, and you drew a straight line from the fact that they could not watch specific sitcoms and therefore they achieved STEM excellence, that person would look at you and go, "You're an idiot."
I was not allowed to watch Disney Channel growing up, and I did not achieve STEM excellence. So I don't care. But maybe it's because I'm a quote Native American. I will say, can I just take this part for a sec? Because have you seen the movie Whiplash?
No.
So he says here, more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. Now, this guy's a dumbass. Okay, so all of that
What's
stuff.
Whiplash?
Whiplash is a movie about abuse. It's a movie about abuse of an ambitious musician by J.K. Simmons' character. And he sees that. This is what conservatives can't interpret art. Like, it's in the same way that they think they worship Jordan Belfort or the guy who says greed is good in Wall Street movies, or all the mobsters and Tony Soprano.
Oh, they thought Colbert Report was actually promoting conservative values.
He can interpret art. Whiplash is about abuse by a teacher, a mentor, and he sees it as he was pushing him to excellence. What a lunatic. Anyway.
More math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. So
Fewer socializing.
more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons,
I just
more
wanna say,
books, less TV.
I'm not at the
all he's
sleepover
talked
because
about.
I don't
He
wanna
hasn't
do that.
referenced a single book, incidentally. He hasn't referenced a single book in this. He mentioned like 50 television shows, as far as I can tell. More creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kind of parents. More normal American kids view those kind of kids with scorn. I don't even know if he was referring
Tell
to.
this to your therapist.
If you grow up
Write a rap
aspiring to
about it.
normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s, or even now, who raise their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. My guess is that the families you knew in the 90s,
like the Full House family?
probably the ones that you're talking to did not know any immigrant families, the kind that you're talking about. They did not know the families like yours. In part because it was also in the wake of Pat Buchanan and that other America First movement. Normalcy doesn't cut it in hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from slumber
What is
before,
our
and we can do it
Sputnik
again.
moment?
So Sputnik actually is where we massively expanded, say, educational loan programs after China or after Russia beat us to have a satellite in space, which is the only thing that extended that to people.
Our Sputnik moment is maintaining the H-1B program?
Isn't it inspiring?
Or is it just crying and thinking about how we should have venerated the nerds and Saved by the Bell more?
We've awakened from slumber before. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it. Now, what's fascinating is that that is not what Trump voters voted for, at least based upon his rhetoric and, frankly, what Trump did in the first Trump administration. Forbes magazine, February 1st, 2021. That is literally days after Joe Biden is sworn in. Members of the Trump administration waged war behind the scenes against companies and foreign-born scientists and engineers. After 4 years telling the story, explains how Trump appointees turned U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services into an organization opposed to the immigration of high-skilled foreign nationals on H-1B visas. It talks about different legislative attempts. Ted Cruz, of course, did a 180 on it, and but Cruz did a bill with Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions went on to be the Attorney General. Guess who Jeff Sessions' top aide was when he introduced this legislation? Monsieur Stephen Miller. The Buy American, Hire American executive order was a part of this. Nevertheless, Vivek has his own idea about why Trump was elected and what that meant. It was a vote for mediocrity. And look, let's be honest. I mean, Donald Trump was given hundreds of millions of dollars to, who's this?
I'm worried that this problem goes all the way back to the Eisenhower administration, because we were idolizing
the Sharks and the Jets, but
this is Danny Zuko of Greece and Eugene Felsnick.
But to be honest with you, this was actually done in the 70s, but it was about the 50s. But you can look at Lords of Flatbush and get the same idea.
Although those guys that played the high school students in the movie were probably in high school in the 50s.
Isn't history so difficult to get your grasp on?
Here is Elon Musk basically saying, going back and fighting against people who have said to him, you are trying to optimize H-1B visas because this is how you make all your money, by basically exploiting these people and bringing them in. Now, they get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
But they probably don't get paid
market value.
And
if they want to take vacation, or say they have something to do after work and they need to leave an hour early, well, maybe they're going to think twice about that, because their immigration status is entirely dependent on their employer renewing it.
Yeah, let's say you work for a massive communications platform, and then some crazy billionaire buys it out of nowhere and starts doing crazy stuff to it. But and you might say, like, this goes against my ethics, but it doesn't go against my visa, so I'm going to have to stick with that.
Exactly.
Here is Elon Musk really basically striking out at people. He doesn't like people using his platform to criticize him, apparently.
Sorry, it's just a tweet.
Oh, it's just a tweet? We're not going to play a video?
He responds to this up here. Sorry.
All right. Elon, stop trying to optimize something that shouldn't exist. Everyone's been trained in high school and college, and you answer the question. Convenient logic. Here, let's listen to what the response is to.
The sort of 5-step process. First, make your requirements less dumb. Your requirements are definitely dumb. It does not matter who gave them to you. It's particularly dangerous if a smart person gave you the requirements, because you might not question them enough.
This is just engineering stuff,
no matter
right?
who you are, everyone's wrong some of the time. So make your requirements less dumb. Then try very hard to delete the part or process. This is actually very important. If you're not occasionally adding things back in, you are not deleting enough. Right. The bias tends to be very strongly towards let's add this part or process step in case we need it. But you can basically make in-case arguments for so many things, and for a rocket that is.
Okay.
So the caption is just basically criticizing him, right, for...
Basically saying, apply your engineering shtick to this immigration stuff.
Right, which is sociopathic. And he responded and took the side of Vivek, basically saying, the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and F yourselves in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend.
No.
So that's the fissure, is in between the people. When we played that video earlier of that attack in New Orleans, that he's not white, but he's American, was born in Texas. It doesn't matter, though. They're making it an immigration problem. That is the fissure between the capitalist gods like Elon Musk, who are running the party, and the rank and file MAGA Republicans, rank and file Republicans, who are just nativists and racist, and they don't really care about what he's trying to say, which is like, don't you guys care that these visas help us make more money? Don't you care that we can bring in these people who are highly skilled and hold their immigration status over them so they can be the most productive workers for us and make all this money? But they're like, no, we don't care. That's what the Trump base says. We care about getting rid of the brown people and of the immigrants.
What is so fascinating about this is that Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. And I will, Pink Lady has said, a reminder, Sam, when you're mispronouncing Vivek's name, that y'all took issue with racist and sexist mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name. It's also just not a... it is not a very clever joke. I am not mispronouncing his name because I am doing it with a very specific agenda in mind, calling him smarmy. So what Musk and Ramaswamy seem to be saying here is that, look, there are aspects of cultures outside of America that breed excellence. And when people come to this country as immigrants, because he's also saying it was immigrant families too. When immigrant families come to this country, they also breed excellence because they are so much more focused on success. If this is a function of immigrants, right? They're just saying immigrants. They're not saying rich immigrants. If it's just a function of immigrants, why in the world would this not apply to someone who has come into this country to work on farms, to pick peaches, to work in construction, to work wherever they are working? They have the same ethic, according to Vivek and Elon. Why should it only apply to the workers that they hire to bring in? I got no problem with allowing labor to have as much ability to enter this country as we do, or exit this country as we do with capital. Yeah. That's all well and good. And if we're to take their argument seriously, that there is a culture that these immigrants have that causes them to pursue excellence more than is in this country, then we should probably allow more immigrants in so we have more of that culture.
Immigrants working hard to achieve the American dream is a trope that we've known our entire lifetimes here, right? But the culture is not something that's inherent. It's a reflection of not having, say, generational wealth like more white people do in this country than any other ethnic group. It's a function of the fact that they have been uprooted and are starting from scratch and have no choice but to work as hard as they can and to make as much money and to live and have kind of things like vacation or off time or family time much less than most Americans. And what the freaks like Elon Musk and Ramaswamy are saying are that they want more of that. They want to engender more desperation, whether it be via the threat of deportation for undocumented workers, or whether it be through programs like H-1B. They want to. It's not about inherent culture. It's about creating that culture of fear and desperation to extract as much as they can from a workforce. It's
about work or starve. Like, that's the culture here. And like Bernie, Warren Gunnels points out, who was like a Bernie advisor, I believe, the very first amendment Bernie passed in the Senate would have substantially increased the fees companies pay to hire H-1B guest workers to fund scholarships for Americans pursuing degrees in science, engineering, and math. It passed 59 to 35 in 2007, but did not become law. And people have done studies on this, that the H-1B program has moved people domestically to not seek those fields because it is suppressing the wages, regardless of how much these people make. And you might feel like it's the same thing with sports. It is serving the capitalists at top, both the people picking stuff out of fields and the guys doing code for 80 hours a week. The people who are making money off this are capitalists. That's why Trump used illegal labor in Trump Tower. That's why Elon likes these programs, because he can say, oh, you don't like this? See ya, sayonara.
Exactly, and that's why healthcare functions the way it does in this country too.
If what Vivek was saying happened, they would not be. They would just be paying those H-1B laborers less money.
Yeah,
they would. That's the point. They have the ability to just. It is a race to the bottom, because they know that these imported workers will take 5% less of whatever the market rate is, maybe 10%. And and if you know that you're competing against their ability to import workers specifically for a job that you're competing for, you know that you are going to lose because A, people are just as smart everywhere. If they get the proper education, and B, then it just comes down to which one of us is going to be cheaper. And which one, not just going to be cheaper, which one's going to be more controllable.
Yep.
Because these people can't get up and go and say, hey, you know what? You're being a jerk. I'm going to leave Tesla and I'm going to go work at, I don't know, Microsoft. They can't do that.
Yeah, this guy's a Nazi. I don't know if I want to unban him. It looks like we banned them for a good reason. It's like, well, look at the terms of your visa. Also,
what happened leading up to the 90s that Vivek was referring to that may have engendered this culture that he's talking about? And again, it's not culture. We degraded as a society because we slashed taxes for the wealthy and deregulated everything during that time period and left the doors open for industry to do whatever they wanted. That's part of why people feel this alienation that he's gesturing towards, and then at the end of the day, he's just using it for more exploitation.
So we have the predicate of this, of Elon Musk and Ramaswamy, who just weeks ago were hailed as saviors of the Republican Party because they were going to cut all sorts of government functions and allow corporations to exploit our resources and socialize the costs of their privatized profits. Also, to be fair, a full quarter minimum of Donald Trump's money that he spent on getting elected. And apparently the vast majority of his get out the vote operation in swing states was paid for by one person, Elon Musk. One person. And now all of a sudden, guys like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon realized, like, oops, why did Trump want these people? Because, of course, they're the moneyed establishment in this country. There's no such thing as someone who has $400 billion who is not part of the establishment. Money is the establishment in this country. It's not a club. It is a bunch of people, a class of people. It's not four people. It is a class of people who have aligned incentive structure to maintain power. And the way you get into their group is by having a similar amount of money, and then you guys negotiate it. Here is Charlie Kirk talking about the problem of all of a sudden having these big supporters.
This is a violation of our social contract. And it sounds good. Let's just let more H-1B workers in. But what about the 23-year-old that went to University of Washington and studied computer science at the UW Computer Science Department? Shouldn't he be given preference above someone who could do the work for far less? It is about priorities, and it's not about what Charlie Kirk wants. It's not about what other people want out there. And I have friends on both sides of this.
Wait, but what about what the free market wants? What about, I thought that they were free market fundamentalists. What about if there is a worker that is offering to do it for a lower wage? Does that count?
Point.
Does that count?
This is the point. They will not allow for labor to have the same mobility as capital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crypto. We want a crypto where the government can't even look at it. We want it so free that there's no regulation on it. But labor, we need a military on the borders to make sure that is under control.
And in the cities.
Yeah, exactly. Just have it everywhere.
Sorry, keep going.
About what Charlie Kirk wants. It's not about what other people want out there. And I have friends on both sides of this debate. It's very simple. It's what the American people wanted. And the American people overwhelmingly voted for less immigration and the prioritization of the American children.
Pause it for a second. I don't know what the words overwhelming mean in this instance. But Donald Trump won by what? 1% of the popular vote?
About less than 2.
Certainly, it was under 50% of the popular vote, is my understanding. And you'd have to assume that every single one of those voters voted for less immigration than we have right now. And even then, that wouldn't be overwhelming. Go ahead.
Simple. It's what the American people wanted. And the American people overwhelmingly voted for less immigration and the prioritization of the American children and the American worker, not the American oligarch. This is...
Oh, interesting. The oligarchs, first of all, I mean, Charlie Kirk has been completely supported by oligarchs.
Was it Foster Freeze?
I think it was Foster Freeze. It was another guy, though, who died that Kirk is now, I think, I can't remember who it was. But, I mean, all these oligarchs fund all of what they do. And here's Steve Bannon waving the same flag as if Donald Trump is also not one of these oligarchs.
Here's our position. You're not going to reform it because we're going to get it shut down, all of it. It should be the top. If Elon Musk's number one thing was Doge for America First, American citizens, this would be at the top of something to take off, to take it down. Why is it not? Because I believe his agenda is how to become the first trillionaire. I'm just saying.
That is his agenda, and it always was. That's part of what he's obsessed with in terms of funding these primary challenges for anybody that goes against the Trump agenda. The goal is for him to maximize his net worth while the Republicans have both the House, the Senate, and the presidency. That's what he's trying to do. But, yeah, I mean, Trump's going to welcome that kind of money. So I wonder how they strike that balance, or if MAGA even cares at the end of the day.
Well, my guess is that at the end of the day, the so-called MAGA and anything that they wanted or anything that they voted for has all been an illusion anyways. They're not going to care about this one way or another. They will get over it depending on what Donald Trump says. That's it. I contend right now that if you voted for Donald Trump, unless you're a wealthy person or a ultra nationalist, that's a very polite way of putting it, or maybe a religious fundamentalist, let's be honest, Christian fundamentalist, whatever reason you thought you were voting for Donald Trump, you're going to get screwed. And this immigration thing is a perfect example. There is, if you believe there should be no immigration or less immigration in this country, there's absolutely no reason to assume that you need to import skilled immigrants any more than unskilled immigrants. They both help this economy. They both bring in, values and ideas that are dynamic and different. But if you believe that immigrants are the problem in this country, that you're losing your sense of America, there's no reason to have either one of them. So let's tune in to Donald Trump. And like I say, Forbes in February of 2020 wrote a piece on how the Trump administration, the first one, really attacked and undermined the H-1B visa program. This was one of their biggest agendas. And based upon what, Bannon says, and I would imagine Stephen Miller say, it's going to be their agenda again. Why wouldn't be? That would be completely consistent. That's what we've been told people voted for Donald Trump. Can we get a drum roll, please? Can we find a drum roll? Can we find a drum roll? How do we not have a drum roll on our soundboard? Because it's a moment of suspense.
I would make sure to have a drum roll on my soundboard.
I got it. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will hear how Prince Trump has decided. Elon and Vivek, or the rubes who voted for no more immigrants in this country.
Why did you change your mind on H-1B visas, sir?
I didn't change my mind. I've always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need smart people coming into our country. And we need a lot of people coming in. We're going to have jobs like we've never had before.
But sir, you said you changed your position. Do you plan to go to the funeral next?
Sad trombone now, Matt.
We have one of those.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Where's your board?
well, I
Are they
mean,
going to do everything around here? People are pretty rusty after the whole week.
yeah, well, you know.
But there it is. Donald
feel
Trump does a full 180.
But that's all that matters. King Trump says what he wants, and then the base will, like, it's been a fun
over.
little debate, but
There you go.
It's it. That's it.
Billionaires won.
Yeah. And as long as they get some images of some crying families being torn apart, and maybe AOC or I don't know, another member of Congress has an emotional moment and they get to laugh at her about like what the pain they've inflicted, they'll forget about H-1B in a second.
Of course. Can't we get some black people kneeling or something like that, and we could talk about something different?
But again, like this is not actually a contradiction. It's always been a lie that, and there's a discrepancy between, are we doing this to keep the America white, or are we doing this for the labor imperatives of it? And I can't remember who exactly said, but one of the right-wing sort of intelligentsia guys said, well, Americans should like the H-1B program because it's causing brain drain from all these other countries. And it's like, so, okay, the wages get suppressed. If I wanted to go into tech, it's going to be suppressed by people from other countries that are going to work more for less, who might be the exact same competency. But at least India has less, like,
But that's the way that all of these things are utilized for their real agenda, whether it's both racism or it could be like, patriotism. It's patriotic for these companies to cause a brain drain from potentially rival companies. But who's going to benefit from this at the end of the day? Just the rich people.
That would be me.
Yeah.
And so, I want to be clear. Do I think we should have an H-1B program? Yes. But should we be extracting money from corporations so that they don't save on the delta? If there really is, technical know-how that we need to fill the gaps, that's fine. But you're going to pay for it. And that money go back in to support, like Bernie's bill, support developing the technical know-how amongst Americans. And while we're at it, let's apply this to people across the spectrum of skill, because there's no reason not to. If you're telling me that you're importing these people because of their work ethic, because of their cultural values, let's bring in the other people from these other immigrants so that we get our stuff picked. And let's develop a way in which we protect them from the exploitation of the capitalist class that brings them in here. Yeah, Niall from Trinidad. Time to hire some skilled immigrants to handle the soundboard.
But but that's part of the thing where it's like, what scares me about this era of Trump is that he does feel kind of untethered from really any promises outside of just the toughness on immigration, which is going to be brutal. But like he I think in part because the Democrats abdicated leadership and responsibility over these past 4 years and never made it so that people, like government was delivering for them and in a robust way and in a way that was tangible and made sense, and there was an overarching narrative, that there's a section of like folks where either they stayed home or Donald Trump makes them feel like he's
Plan beats no plan.
Or I'd rather be entertained by my government, which both parties suck and they're not doing anything for me. And at least with him,
plan beats no plan, even if the plan keeps evolving and is really made based on nothing.
Actually, concept of a plan beats no plan.
Exactly.
And we're going to hear in history this like rewriting of this time period to talk about Donald Trump as a political force. And in terms of his charisma, I think that is valid. But there were millions of missed opportunities to put this guy in the dustbin of history where he should be. And that's a failure of the opposition party, which is basically a coalition of people who just are not Republicans, as opposed to a party that stands for something more broadly.
Folks.
I mean, we had to bring up the Democrats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, we got plenty of
Democrats.
time. We're just at the beginning of the year.
Although we have to do it at the end because that's when our Soros stops, tuning in. And it's past 1 p.m. It's his afternoon nap time.
Exactly. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.